Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of OptionVue Essentials. My name is Ken Dole. I'll be your host today. We're going to go through BackTrader. And let me just know if you can hear me or not. Just type something, if somebody could type something in the chat section. I can quickly, before I go to screen sharing, just let me know if you can hear. Yes, okay, good. Thank you. So let me start up the screen sharing here. And first of all, I just want to go through some of the general points about BackTrader. This is an article I wrote for Discover Options a while back, which is still relevant. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But just let me tell you, for those of you not familiar with my background, I've been a broker for 4 years in Los Angeles, the retail side of things, with a small brokerage there from 04 to 08. And then I came to Discover Options in 08. And I've been a mentor for Discover Options since then. And also recently I've taken on duties as a registered options principal with that same brokerage I worked for in the 04-08 period. And supervising options trades, basically it's a Series 4 license. I'm holding a Series 4, Series 7, Series 63 licenses in the brokerage industry. So that's a little bit about my background. And I enjoy coaching the most, and trading, of course. Those are my passions. So that is a nice segue into BackTrader, because I teach my students, one of the main things I stress in our course is using BackTrader to learn the strategies that we teach. That's the first thing that you can take away from this. BackTrader will help you learn a strategy if it's being taught to you by a service, or if you're just trying to pick up how to trade a butterfly, for example, or a condor. It's a great tool for that. It's going to help you immensely in terms of how do you execute the thing, how do you maximize your profitability, etc. So that's step one. Now, if you wanted to use it to fine-tune a strategy, if you're more advanced, if you're already trading these types of strategies, and you just want to fine-tune things in order to bring in a greater level of profitability, that is also a great use of BackTrader, just to develop strategies or fine-tune them to increase your profitability. So the data in BackTrader goes all the way back to 2001. So you can actually, for most assets, back it up all the way to 2001 and go forward. If you wanted to develop a strategy, that's what I would suggest. You don't want to just go through the recent 3 years of bull market for a strategy, for example, and then assume that it works in all markets. You wouldn't necessarily know. You'd want to go through a longer period of time, preferably the whole period of time, say 10 years, or at least through a period where it had a bear market and a bull market, say 5 or 6 years back, and then move forward. So that's going to give you a better certainty that your strategy will hold up in different markets, or what kind of adjustments you would need to make in different markets for your strategy, for example. So the data isn't always there, for example, on the currencies. If you're trading currencies, a lot of, and grains, or if you're a futures trader, these things have switched over recently to electronic symbols, like within the last 2-3 years. So the data for that symbol may only go back to 2010, for example. Other things, other assets, like some of the volatility symbols that have recently been created, or within the last 5 years, of course, they only go back as far as they've been available. But for things like IBM or the Russell, you can get data all the way back to 2001 and then move it forward. So just as far as some of the basics here, BackTrader was designed to be able to start up in a certain date. Let's say you wanted to go back to January 2008 and move forward and trade through the bear market during that year. You would just move it back to that date and then move forward. That's what it's designed to do. So we're going to be moving forward in time. It'll work best and develop the least amount of hiccups And by that I mean error messages that might be created. So that would be the best way to operate it. If you're hopping around and say you just want to check out what a strategy would do in say '09 and then you back it up to '08 and so on, that could create some issues. Maybe not immediately, but over a period of an hour or two, you could develop some hiccups. So just pick a date, start moving forward, and it doesn't mean you can't back up. You can. It's just not designed necessarily to go backward. It works best moving forward in time, so that's the key thing. Back when I wrote this, we were using 3 days of volatility data to create the variable volatility model, which generates the graphical analysis screen for our projected equity curves, profit and loss curves. That is no longer true. We're using just 1 day of data. It's defaulted to 1 day of data to create the variable volatility model. So that's a little bit different. You can set it to up to 3 days if you wanted to do that, but that would be your choice. Normally and because of the way volatility flips around intraday and just overnight, we set it to 1 day of volatility data now so that it more accurately reflects the current price. The theoreticals then will more closely match the actual prices, in other words. All right, so now I'm going to go through the setup features, but I'll do that in just a second. That's what this is talking about here. But keep in mind that when you're in BackTrader mode, everything that you can do in the program, with the exception of OpScan, is available in BackTrader mode. That includes the price chart, the graphical analysis, trade finder, survey. You can use any of those features and it will pull data as of that date. So you can create strategies then and test them forward. With the exception of OpScan, as I mentioned, that uses only real-time data. So another point that I'm going to show you in just a minute is how to speed it up a little bit. That's what this is talking about, because sometimes it will take a little bit too long as you're advancing forward to update. So I'll show you that in just a minute. So it just talks about the performance graph there. Theory of backtesting, as I was mentioning, it's a great way to learn a strategy. And just because you feel that you've mastered a strategy is no reason that you wouldn't want to backtest it. Backtesting can be an advantage even for expert traders, because markets are always changing. Mr. Market is always trying to teach us something new, so you have to pay attention, and backtesting is a good way to adjust your strategies to the current markets. And this is a key point that I stress with students. One of the things that we really emphasize in Discover Options in our courses is teaching discipline, and BackTrader is an excellent way to help develop that discipline, because it teaches you that as you're moving forward, if you don't have a plan, it really points that out dramatically. You need to be able to understand what your game plan is at all times when you're in a strategy in order to be consistent with your results. And if you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, which, you know, I've been guilty of that over the years. I can't say I haven't, but I always pay for it. So this will help you get that sense of discipline honed and developed without costing you any money. So that's an important point. And if you're learning a strategy that you've paid for example, with a set of rules, it is very valuable for you to know that it's going to work the majority of time. So if you start out in a bad stretch, if say you lose 2 trades in a row, you might just throw it out the window. But if you've done the back testing and you know that it works 8 out of 10 times, then you would just go carry on and just carry on with the strategy. So valid point there as well. Now, one thing you could do with BackTrader is run several different strategies or different assets at the same time as you're going through in time, because it does take a bit of time for it to update. I don't necessarily recommend that. I think it's better just to focus on one strategy, one asset, on one asset at a time, one symbol. And then just create a performance graph for that, and then create another performance graph if you want to change the strategy or change the asset you're using to see which would work better. That I think would be more definitive in terms of what you want to create as far as your strategies. And basically, if you start out and you have a little bit of a rough time with BackTrader, it's not the easiest thing to master, but once you do, I think you'll find it to be very useful. And a lot of our clients have raved about, that have put the time in and have come up with strategies that are immensely profitable. You just know that they persevered and created just a wealth of knowledge off of BackTrader. It's something they could not have done without that. So it is worth persevering and sticking with it. So that said, let's go to some practical situations here. So the first thing you would want to do, I'm just going to get out of BackTrader. We're going to start right from the beginning. The first step, BackTrader is under the NetView tab in the top row of buttons up here. So you click NetView, BackTrader, and then you have a date here. So you want to set your date to whatever the desired starting of your test is. One thing I want to mention here is if you are only using BackTrader for data, if you're using delayed data through BackTrader and you have no real-time data, you can just click Store to Existing Asset Files, and that will create a copy of what you're doing in BackTrader. Otherwise, normally when you're in BackTrader, it does not store any work you're doing on the matrix. The option matrix will not be stored. It's stored to a temporary folder, temporary BackTrader folder that gets erased as soon as you close out BackTrader. So the reason why it isn't defaulted to that is if you are trading real time and you go into BackTrader and then it changes all your symbol definitions to something 6 months ago, that's of course a negative. You don't want to store that. But if you're only using BackTrader, then you may want to store that to a hard copy on your, save that asset file to your hard drive. You would just click Store to Existing Asset Files. I'm going to leave it on Store to Temporary. Now, I can navigate here just by typing in a date. I could do I'm going to go back to September 27th of 12. But I can also use the keys on the keyboard to navigate. Let me show you how that would work. If I use the bracket key, it will go back one day at a time. That's the left bracket key next to the P on the keyboard. That goes back one day or forward one day for the right bracket key. If I just hold it down, it will start scrolling backward. Now if I use the Shift key in conjunction with, and keep in mind that it has to be highlighted, the date has to be highlighted, or you at least have to click in that cell for this to work. But if I hold the Shift key down and use the left bracket key, now it goes back 1 month at a time. Or if I just hold it down, Shift bracket, left bracket key, it'll start scrolling back months at a time. And forward again is the right bracket key, backward is the left bracket key. Now I can also go back 1 year at a time, one whole year, just by holding down the Shift key and then using the less than sign. Or the greater than sign would be 1 year forward. So I'm going to go to 12 and scroll forward to September 27th. Just go back one more day. That's my starting day there. And I can set the time. You should set that to, when you're in BackTrader, you want to be setting your time to near the end of the day or at the end of the day. For me, it would be 1500. So I'm going to put it there. The reason is because when you're viewing your matrix, you want to see the full range of price movement for that day. It's much more efficient to be able to see what has occurred for the entire day rather than starting at the beginning of your market open. You're only going to see the market open prices under your actual section. So I'm ready to go here. I'm going to start this up. Click Start. And now we are moving to that date, September 27th last year. And it'll just take a minute for it to update here. So now I'm in that date. And I'm going to use Google. We're going to see if we can have a little fun with Google today and try and develop a butterfly strategy using weekly options. So the first thing I could do is open up the matrix for Google. And it's going to open up with the weeklies and the monthlies all set to this date. That was as of that date and that time. And the next thing I'm going to do is open up status. The reason for that is how the program is going to calculate a value and track your equity curve as you're advancing in your test. And that is invaluable information. So that's the first step. Open up status. Keep status open throughout your test. If you're in real-time mode, that gets done on a step called File, Assess Accounts. And you can have it create a value for each of your real-time accounts at the end of each day, let's say. But it doesn't automatically occur in BackTrader. So we need to keep the status window open to do that. So it's going to give us values as we advance each day. Every time we stop in BackTrader, it will create a value. If we just skipped forward and said, well, I'm going to hurry, I just want to get through 1 month at a time, I'm going to put an option on 30 days out, advance 30 days, see what happened. It doesn't actually generate data for each day from that period where you started. If you flipped forward 30 days, there'd be nothing in between, just a straight line from this date to 1 month forward. So keep that in mind. You want to generate a good performance graph, you have to advance forward 1, maybe 2 days at a time. You don't want a hole in your graph there. That's the way you have to do it. So now we're going to open up Report. That's going to be our graph. We have gain loss here, but we also have performance graph. I just click the little arrow with the page here. That brings in the date. It's already there. I've already set this up. But if you click that, it'll bring in the date you're in BackTrader and give you the starting amount. I put in a $20,000 starting amount in this account. Now, assuming you did not have an account set up, or if you were using your real-time account to do this test, you wouldn't necessarily want to put these trades into your real-time account. It would just kind of mess things up. We're going to create a brand new account here. You could do that by going to Info, which is your account information box. Info, fourth button from the left on the top of your program buttons. Then click New Account. Give it a name. I've already done that, so I'll show you what account got created in a minute. But just give it, let's call it S, so you can see. Then I put a starting amount in of 20,000. That's really the main steps. I'm going to cancel it because I've already created the account. But the earnings rate, the charge rate, etc., 0%. You can just leave them. They're pretty much 0 anyway, so that's easy. Uncheck the slippage. We're just going to remove that variable in most cases. You can leave commissions on and set your commissions here under Security Commissions Schedule. I just have mine set to what my broker charges, $1 per contract, no base fee, no minimum. But whatever it is, you can set a break over here if you had one. I've got it at none. And then when you're set with that, close. This box here is good to leave on. It'll give you a running tally for a campaign. Let's say you're doing a calendar campaign, for example, where you're closing out a short option and rolling that short option, keeping the long option on. You may want to know what the profit and losses on your whole campaign rather than just the current existing trade. This box will do it for you. Check gain loss to include previously realized gain losses. And once you do that, then we're okay. We're going to go ahead and click OK here. And this is the account name. I did start it with 20,000, and we're starting it on this date, and that's a key piece of information. If I start it in the present and then go back to this date, well, I'll have no cash on September 27th last year. So therefore, I'll have no value to create a yield on. It'll just start with 0, and the yield will be incorrect. So you can verify that with your T-log. That's short for transaction log. You click the transaction log, and there's my deposit of that date, 20,000. That's where it should start. And I've got that first trade in there, which I'll show you in just a minute. So once you get all that set up, so those are the steps basically, we're going to move into BackTrader, create an account. Specifically for this test, I would suggest make sure that your deposit is set for this date. Open up your status and then create the performance graph. And now I want to keep the status open so I could just close this out and get back to the matrix. If I did that, then I wouldn't be creating a performance graph. So I'm going to navigate back to the matrix by clicking matrix, or I can use the window tab. That'll show you all your open windows. And it's a good idea just to note that status is open here. BackTrader is open, the matrix is open. So now I can begin with my strategy, which I'm going to show you. One very important point about backtesting is that if you ran through a bunch of tests and changed the rules here and there and just tried to fine-tune an approach, you may, after a while, not remember what the rule was for the first strategy that you started with. So here's a good idea. I've created a Word document, and basically it just outlines what this particular test is going to do and what the rules are. So we start with the asset, the strategy, general strategy. The objective, we're trying to generate 3% per week return on the invested capital. The account size is 20,000. The test period is 6 months ago to now. And for slippage and commissions, I've set slippage to none. Seems trivial, but you should always include that information as well. Commissions are, as I stated already. And this is the most important part. What are the rules for your backtest? If you don't have the rules written down, first of all, you may not remember when you're halfway through the test if you have to break for a day or two. So it's good to write them down even as you're running through the test, is to refer back to or amend them as you need to. Because these are not written in stone. Part of the process is to adjust these rules if you find they're not working. As you're halfway through your test, you find they're not working, you can come back in, reset the rules. Instead of wasting time, just get to what is working. That's the way I've done it. So we're going to use a 10-point wide butterfly on weekly options. With just over a week, we want 8, 9, 10 days left to give it some time. Premium, we want to capture some premium, but we want a maximum amount of time decay is the idea with this approach. So the second part is we're going to allocate only a fifth of our account. So we're at $20,000. We're going to use 20% of that, or $4,000, for our starting butterfly. Reason being is it's not a very high probability approach when you're using a butterfly, so you don't want to get into a big drawdown on your account right off the bat. Say you put the entire amount in there and you lost 50% of it, of course you'd be in big trouble. So we're just going to start out with 20% of the account initially. Set profit target is going to be 50%. And I'm not saying that's a perfect idea, but we're just trying it out here. So we're going to say 50% on the butterfly. You could get a lot more. You could maybe do better just by going lower. We won't know that's the purpose of doing the test. We want to find out if this will work. So we're setting it at 50% just as initial premise. And if it does hit 50% at any time during any trading day as we're moving forward, we're going to exit the full position. So the next step here is we're going to set our stop, and that's also equally important to the profit target. We want to set a stop loss. Stop loss is 20%. So that may again not be ideal, but we're going to find out. That's part of the process here. The 20% loss is on either side, so if it moves up out of our profit zone to the upside, we'd have to take the 20% loss on the upside or the downside. We're going to, if it does hit that anytime during our trading, we're going to close the entire position. And then on number 5, we're going to position the center strike at the money. That's where you get the most premium. So that's always a good idea, unless there is a trend, either clearly bullish or bearish, in which case we're just going to move it a little bit, 10 points in this case, above or below the market price. So if the trade is still open one day before expiration, Thursday of expiration week, we're not going to ride that into the expiration day. We're going to get out of there. Reason is it gets too chaotic on expiration day. So we're just going to exit Thursday and look to get in a new one, reset, either take profit or cut losses, whatever the case. By midday, we're going to get out. The reason midday is because usually the markets are calmer than better entries and exits midday. So you can exit this one and get in the next one. The middle of the day is a good time. The next one is if we are closing before Thursday, we hit our profit or target or stop loss, we're going to enter either on Tuesday or Wednesday. We can't enter earlier. A little bit earlier would be fine. So we're going to enter Tuesday or Wednesday of the week before expiration now, not of that same week of expiration. So we're going out, looking at about 10 days, in other words. And as soon as you close out the previous trade, we're not going to double up and add a new trade because that would double our risk. We're going to exit the first one, then enter a new trade. So that's the parameters, and I would suggest that if you're going to set up a good testing, back testing regimen, then this would be a very important part of the process here. And just every time that you create a test, just create a new document, state what the rules are. That way you can see what's working, what's not working. And if you did wait a couple of months to resume, then you would know exactly where you're at instead of wasting your research and having to start from scratch, because you could basically just have to redo the entire thing if you didn't remember what rules you had set. It could get a little confusing. So there we go. So now back to BackTrader. We're going to set up our initial butterfly. And if I just advance one day, you'll see what that one is. There it is. That's what the initial butterfly I put on, was just above the market at the time. It was 756.50, so I went to the closest 10-point strike higher. In other words, approximately 10 points above where the market was. And the reason I did that is because we had this trend at the time. We're seeing on this price chart now, we're seeing, let me get rid of the volatility here. That's quite an uptrend, so we just said, well, it could likely get to a 765 somewhere in that period of 10 days or 5 days, whatever, where we can get our target. So that's why we put it up there a little bit higher than where the market is. Otherwise, it just would have been right at 755 as our center strike. So now we're all set up, and down below here, as soon as we start out, you can see we have a little bit of a loss. On the initial cash flow was, if we spent $4,232 for the trade, which was approximately 20% of the account. And right now we have a loss of $1,449. So let's just advance to the end of this day. So remember I said we should start advancing from the end of the day, not the beginning. So we'll move it to the end of Friday. Now you notice it's taking about 10, 12 seconds to advance in BackTrader. Here's a little trick that we can use to speed things up a little bit. I'm going to go back to the quotes display, because every time I advance in BackTrader, it's updating every single symbol in the quotes display along with my options in the matrix. So I could close out the quotes display, not the whole program, of course, just the quotes display window, and navigate back to my matrix. It's either going to be under matrix. You can get there by going window, matrix, And if it doesn't pop up, well, then it's minimized down in the left corner of your screen, and that's where it was. So there it is. And now if I advance another day, and now we got to check the gain loss. We're at 161, so we got a 50% target. How do we tell if we're going to hit a 50% target or a stop of 20%? The best way is to click the Analyze screen. And the black dot here, I like to bump it up to 5 timelines to give us an idea, where we might hit our target. I'm going to set the vertical axis of the graph on yield terms, so we can see in the left margin right about here 50% is what I'm looking for. I might get there on this timeline in 4 days, so I could keep that in mind. If got somewhere in the middle of the profit zone here in 4 days, I have to be watchful that I'm going to take profit. If I put my cursor right on the black dot, it's going to tell me where I'm at right now. So I'm up 4% currently. That's the just pulling the information from the GL, the gain loss box on the matrix. That's where that number is. If I put it in dollars, it would just say plus 161. But instead of having to break out the calculator or do that by hand, we just look at the graph. So now I'm going to advance another day. Now you can see I'm up $851. Well, is that 50%? I can tell that it's not, because it's obviously not 50% of 4,000, but we can take a look and see where it's at. 20% right now. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to check it, because in the event that you had to stop this trade out in a day or two, you would know what the maximum profit was by checking here. So that's useful information, perhaps. If you wanted to amend your rules a little bit, you say you were getting stopped out more often than you wanted to, you might want to take profit a little sooner. You want to know what profit you were generating as you progress. So it seems a little slow, but it could pay off to just do 1 day at a time. Now you can see we're up 1,081. And again, what would that be in percentage terms? Put my cursor on the black dot. We call it the gram dot for its originator. That's 26%. And you can see the price of Google here. That's the last change, high-low for the day now, because we're at the end of the day. So that was the range of price for the day. 750 was the low. 760 was 66 was the high. So we'll advance another day. And this is relevant information, by the way, because if you were close to getting stopped out, you'd want to know if the market came down intraday, then you would have maybe hit your stop, or on the upside, if the market went your way, you'd want to know that. And then you can actually move around intraday by using the S buttons. Instead of the D, which is forward 1 day or backwards 1 day, the S is forward 1/2 hour on the right or backward 1/2 hour on the left. By the way, if you double click, if I clicked forward twice, and say I'm close to my target now, for example, if I click here on the graph again, I'm up, put my cursor right on it and hold it, 80%. So I've already exceeded my profit target. So now I've got to back up. My target is supposed to be 50%. So I could cheat and say, well, I'll take it here. But to be fair, we'll back it up and look for where it was 50%. And I can do that double click. I clicked twice on the backward arrow, so it backed it up 1 hour. And now you can see I'm still up too much there, so I'll go back another hour. And you notice it is updating a lot quicker now that I closed out the quotes display. That's going to help you immensely. 10 seconds times 1,000 clicks is quite a bit of time if you're doing a big test. Now this looks like it might actually work as far as hitting my target, so that's pretty close, 55%. I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So the way you do that in OptionVue is just reverse the trade. So I'm going to buy 46 at the center strike, sell 23 on the high strike, and sell 23 on the bottom strike. Convert it, and it has disappeared. Now we created a performance graph. I can see what the graph looks like over time, and I'm up 12% on the entire account. And I made the 55%. That was the return on invested capital, but the return on equity, the return on this account basically is 12%. And that's the performance graphs. You should check both. Now I got to go to the price chart and see what I should do for the next weekly. Are we still in a uptrend? Should I still put on a 10 points higher? That's what I'm looking at this for. According to the strategy rules, it looks like we're still in pretty much of an uptrend here. So I'll go ahead and do the 10-point higher again, but I'm out. Let's see, we don't have enough weeklies. What, 10 days out? Define, I can go to weeklies here and I'll put in 10, 13, 10, 13, 12. Got to add in some strikes. Bear with me for a moment here. Normally these are defined, but if they're not, we can manually define them. That's what I'm doing here. Hopefully that'll be enough. Let's see. Now I have to update. Well, in this case, the data isn't available. We would just have to advance until October became the weekly, the second weekly. So I'll do that. I'll just go out to Wednesday of the following week and use the October rather than waste time here. So we're going to look at the matrix, the price chart. If I'd put it up here, that was just luck of the draw. I would have taken a beating probably as it came down. So now that it's broken trend, I'm just going to go with it's not clear if it's going to maintain that uptrend or not. I will use a neutral for the October with 10 days to go. So I'm going to sell. We'll do the same size. 10 points higher, 13, 13. So whenever you're entering a trade, you use the trade column. That's a proposed trade. I could analyze it before by clicking on the T, analyze it before I put it on. There's I could make a maximum of 1,400%. The nice thing about a narrow butterfly is it can make a tremendous return. That's why our return, what seems kind of high at 50%, is really relative to that, not all that high. So we should be able to nab 50% fairly consistently. That's my thought, at least. So then once you look at the graph, you can go ahead and convert it. So there we go. So now you have to remember to click back on existing to see your profit and loss. That was just the commissions for the trade. We're not showing slippage here. So at the end of the whole test, you would have to remove a certain amount, say 2, 3 to 5% of your profit, just as a matter of course for slippage. But that's, I think, a better, more efficient way to do it than including slippage with the program. All right, so we're set up to the next one. Start advancing again at the end of the day, because remember I was in the middle of the day to close it. And so far we are break even. One more day. And by the way, it seems kind of slow at first, but we're going slow so you can see what's happening. You would pick up steam here. It's not going to take you a year to get through a year. Seems like it the way it's going here, but it would be fairly quick once you get into a rhythm with this. You could do probably a 6-month back test in a couple, 3 hours, I would say, to do it thoroughly and check your graphs as you're progressing and so on. And we're just at a little bit of a loss. We're waiting for something to happen here. Well, nothing good is happening. See where we're at, right in the center. Okay. Now it's up over here. Curious, we've gotten very little out of that so far, but we'll go one more day. Now we're close into expiration here, and part of the strategy is to close it out on Thursday if needed. So I'm just going to start advancing into the next day by half hour. In OptionVue, it's important to note that where it says 2 days to expiration, that means there's only one trading day left after this day. So this is Thursday, so Friday is the last trading day, but technically for equities, expiration is on the Saturday following the last trading day, the third Friday of the week. So where it says 2 there's really only one trading day left. All right, so I'm just going to advance another 3 clicks, another hour and a half. And it's coming down. And the graph is not real time. It's not going to update as I'm advancing. So I'm going to have to close it out and reopen if I want to see it. So minus 2,000. So that might have hit my stop. Let's see here. Well, I don't like that data point. It doesn't seem correct. We did drop. Okay, we dropped down to here. Let's back it up 1/2 hour here and see what happened. $7.53. Okay. Our initial price certainly we lost more than 20% at this point. We'll go ahead and close it out. Reason being, if I was using 4,000 and I'm down 2,400, because that's not a correct data point there. So we do have to be a little creative sometimes as far as knowing when to get out. If I put this on T+0, down here you see I'm not actually down anything. Let me just try going forward another couple clicks here. Okay. That apparently was earnings. And that's why we were getting such a low cost, because the volatility was sky high. So we would just go ahead and as soon as we got down to where it was outside of our profit zone, let's just get rid of it. That's one thing about trading weeklies on the stock. You do need to know where earnings are, and apparently this was earnings. So we're going to take that $2,400 loss. We'll assume worst case we're going to lose what we put into it, or close. Go forward one more half hour here. Let's say we'll take the full loss on it. There we go. So we'll convert it. Now if I do that, performance graph, so there's my graph. Now if I lost half of what I made initially, That's fair enough. So don't get too crazy about exact. We want to just get an idea of what's happening here. So look at the price chart. So we have the big drop off on earnings. So the next one would be on the weekly 9. And that is not looking too good. Let's go forward another couple days here. There we go. That makes a little more sense. So there's my center price. Look at the price chart. 680. We got a downtrend going, so I was positioned my butterfly a little bit below on the weekly 8. So I'm going to start out at 670 center strike. We'll do 25. Same size. And 2,000. Let's go up to 20. 20. That's a little closer. I'm trying to get it to 20% of the account value, about 4,000. We could even do a 50 here. That's about right. We'll convert that one. And away we go. Click on existing. We're up 300. Advance another day. Another day. We're off to the right a little bit. And now we're close. There's our current P&L, 38%. So now I'd want to advance 1/2 hour at a time. See if I can nail that 50%. Click again. Down to 550 again. There we go. So that might work. That's the first available point. We have 50% or greater, so we'll go ahead and take that. Close it out. Buy back the center strike. Sell the outer strikes. Convert. And there we go. Performance graph now looks a lot better. So we had one hiccup there through earnings. And, volatility saved us there a little bit. My take is the volatility was so high that the butterfly was cheap, and since we maintained our lot size, we really didn't lose very much, even though percentage-wise it was big. Dollar-wise, it wasn't too big. But we are back up 17%. If you click on this, it'll tell you exactly how many percent, 18.1%. We're up in about a month. So did that achieve our objective? We'd have to go back and look what we were trying to do here. We're trying to get 3% per week on the invested capital. So we've exceeded that by quite a bit. So far, so good. And that's the idea. We'd run through the 6 months. The next one of these I'm going to follow up with this. I want to do a whole series of these on BackTrader because it's not an easy thing. As you saw, we just had a couple of hiccups there. So you got to be a little creative and know, kind of get the hang of what to do in those situations. You saw how I handled it. Hope that helps a little bit. We can't get too wrapped up and think, okay, it's just worthless. Well, it's not worthless. We can just use quite a bit of that data, almost all of it, in fact. There are some points there where you're just going to have to improvise and use your intelligence and do the best thing you can. But the validity of the test, I think, is still very good overall. So I'll follow up in my next Options Essentials. We'll go through some more of this, and I'll by then have some more data for you on this test, and some other ones we'll work on some more. So that's it for today. Let me go back to the meeting. Let's see. Malcolm says, what is your presentation in print or electronic form? It's going to be able to be viewed just as it is right now. What you're seeing and hearing is what you'll see when you click on the link. That'll be available on the website. The OptionVue.com website is where the recording for this will be, and all the OptionVue Essentials and any other available webinars are available via the OptionVue.com website. So you can review anything we did here. Okay, so the black dot being above or below the T+0, that's pretty normal if it's a reasonable amount. If it's like, say, 3 to 5% differential from the T+0, I wouldn't get concerned about it. That's just a difference between the actuals and the theoreticals. It is part of what OptionVue does, is it tells you whether you have a theoretical advantage or disadvantage. And that theoretical T+0 line will tell you that. If it's above where you're currently at, that tells you have a little bit of a theoretical edge, and vice versa if it's below. Now, if it's way outside, then probably you got a bad price. If it's like 20, 30, 50% away from where your T+0 line is, then probably you've got a bad price, and check your matrix and make sure your prices are correct. Or perhaps advance a half an hour in BackTrader to bring in some. You saw how I was doing that. Just flip around till you see something that makes reasonable sense to you. Okay, let's see what else we had here. Okay. All right, thanks for your comment, Derek. Sorry about the audio cutting out. If you listen later. All right, thanks again, everyone, for showing up today, and hope you learned a little bit. And again, I would encourage you to use BackTrader and get in there and try it out. It's a great tool. All right, till we talk again later. Bye for now.